So I told Alan, you just have to tell the feds that it's a documentary in a comedic style, and then
Mhm.
it has nothing to do with real life at all. Like nothing to do. Like it's just made up by a group of 5-year olds who spitball the ideas and then the writers just run with that. It has nothing to do with real life. And if you say
Side,
that,
side. We're recording.
oh,
Yeah.
we're well, okay, sorry. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, they got renewed for for a fourth season, so I'm really excited.
Okay, good. Let's just make
Yeah.
sure like they know that. Well, at least they think that the cadavers
Yeah.
are just props. Okay, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Maximum News, your favorite gaming show, gaming news show on the internet. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons Ken, Max Danger Derrat, and I'm joined as always by the ever FBI elusive, or whatever the Canadian equivalent of that is, Sybsidian of the Triple S League. How you
It
doing,
does
man?
not have connections with extraterrestrials at all, period.
Right, I do, but we're he's been trying to figure out who my contacts are, but that's that's $1 trillion worth information. All right, you're not here to hear us talk about that. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't know. We'll dedicate another show to that. We're here to talk about games. A whole bunch of stuff happening this week. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Elden Ring, the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC is finally out. Woohoo! There is a whole bunch of just drama continuing to happen behind the scenes when it comes to Epic Games and their data getting leaked. Also, Disco Elysium 2 was apparently a thing, and I have some stuff to say about that, Fallout. But I think we're going to start things off this week with, I guess, what is kind of like the capstone to the whole. What do we call it now, Sam? It's not E3 time. It's Game Fest time, I guess, as
Yeah.
Keeley completely just colonized that period of time every June. Yeah, let's just call it Game Fest time. So instead of E3 happening, it's just a whole bunch of people having a whole bunch of online streams, and then there's the Summer Game Fest that's held in person, I guess in Los Angeles or something, although that's streamed as well. Um, Sony did their thing first. Then there was Summer Game Fest. Then there was Xbox and Ubisoft, and then there was a whole bunch of smaller showcases throughout that. But people were wondering if Nintendo was going to do a thing, side, and nobody had any idea. They were completely mum about that until like the day before they were going to do it, and then they did it like 2 or 3 days ago at the time that we're recording this. We're recording this on Thursday, the 20th of June, and I mean, like everybody likes to talk about, okay, who was the winner, like who had the best showcase of this period of time. Even though I think it's still pretty clearly Xbox, dude, I gotta say, Nintendo, they put on a pretty damn solid showcase. They showed some stuff. Obviously, we'll talk about Metroid Prime 4 in a second. That's the biggest thing. But aside from that, there are a lot of really charming looking games and a lot of announcements that people might not have known that they wanted, like myself included, and I'm not even the biggest Nintendo fan, but now that I know that I wanted. I mean, obviously we still don't have Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD on the frickin' console. Maybe they'll release Switch 2 with that, and we're going to be finding out what the deal with that is in the next year. But aside from that, a lot of the stuff they announced was pretty cool. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with this, Side. Side, what is the one thing that you've been asking for from the Legend of Zelda series that we haven't gotten thus far?
I want a game that features Zelda
Yeah,
and
and
just Zelda.
and
Like I
mhm.
want to know how, she fares when going up against monsters and creatures and the all the brothels in the
Kids game, not your
kids
not your
game.
fanfic. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, no, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, dude, it looks so. It's so charming. It's got that like H. How would I describe it? It's got Link to the Past type visuals, but more modern and updated. Not exactly HD 2.5, but close enough. And like it looks great. I will say though, the game's called Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. They really did drop the ball when they could have called it The Legend of Zelda: The Missing Link.
Right?
Get it?
right? Yes.
That pisses me off. But aside from that,
That is very funny.
yeah, you funny guy, you
He's a
crazy
very
Joe
funny
Rogan.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very funny joke.
Okay, so I just realized who you're impersonating. All right, no, but it looks great. I legitimately want to buy this game day one and play it, mainly just because of the echo mechanic. I think that's kind of trademark Nintendo, where they're trying to find ways to innovate on hardware and software and gameplay with all their major properties. And while it's not exactly totally innovative, what they showed that you can do and the different ways that you can do it using the echo mechanic, where you can take things within the world, uh, make copies of them into your magic wand or whatever the hell it is, and then use them to be able to get around your environment. That's a cute idea. I really like that. And yeah, what did like I was most curious to know what you thought about it, because this is something you've been wanting for a long time.
Yeah, like I haven't seen too much of it, um, because it's exclusively on their
Right.
Nintendo platforms. I'm probably not gonna get a chance to play it. I grew up with Zelda, and I grew up with Zelda as an impressionable kid who just embraced the story of 1 and 2. That was what it was out when I grew up. It was one of the first video games that I got to play, and it was so good.
Hmm.
It was so like it made my imagination explode. And I remember my brother and an older family friend of ours, they were sitting there trying to figure out a puzzle in the game for a really long time. They couldn't get past this one guy and he just said grumble, grumble, grumble. And they were trying to figure out like how to like fight him or how to get past him. And as like this like 7-year-old kid who was extremely like nonverbal for quite a long time, I spoke up and I said, give him food, because they had
Hmm.
a meat thing in their inventory. But both my friends were like, "That's not a meat thing. That's a club," and it was a meat thing.
Uh-huh.
And that was one of the like that was one of my like early like video gaming wins. It was my very first guide to video games based off of nothing but perception,
Yeah, yeah.
and I loved it. But the thing that I really loved more when 3 came around was the story of Zelda. I liked the story of Zelda in number 2 because I was really interested in the actual character and the backstory and trying to like imagine like how this situation of number 2 had actually come into play
Yeah.
more than the actual gameplay and stuff, because there was interesting characters and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted to know more about the world and more about Zelda as a character. And I've always been like I'm flat out I always play female characters in games. It's just part of like the way that I connect with video games and can see through the world through a different eye than what I'm used to seeing through.
Yeah, it's part of
So
the whole charm of video games in general is to yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I've always liked the character, and ever since 3, I was really interested in her as a character, because she just seemed so much more interesting. So I'm really excited about this. I feel like probably 30 years too late.
Yeah.
Well, or
Well, no,
about time, I guess you could say,
yeah,
but
yes, that's right. Yeah, because Zelda's
like
still pretty huge.
yeah, yeah, and there's been rumors, and there was there was a big rumor about one of the last Zelda games, Breath of the Wild, where not sorry,
Tears
not
of the
Breath,
Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom, where they really were thinking about adding a female Zelda, as playable character,
Hmm.
and it was supposed to be for like multiplayer, but that somehow for whatever reason never took off, or there was this idea, and we see this in a lot of Asian games, like Korea. This happens so much where some games are viewed as the main character in this game is supposed to be male or female based off of the genre or based off of the IP, and people will literally riot equivalency in their culture if you have another option. They put out this one game. It was a one of those phone games waifu collectors, and they had a male character in it, and the backlash was so bad that they deleted the male character, apologized for for daring to put a male character into the game. So and to me, I look at that and it's just so silly and dumb. It's like my stance has been always give people the option to play whatever they want. Just give a really robust character creator and just let people play whatever they want. And the writing in, Elden Ring, the writing in Mass Effect, the writing in uh the earlier Dragon Age games, it always excels. Fallout, it's always fine. And in fact, I would argue it's the best of the best when you just have a character that the player creates, and Mass Effect did this absolutely wonderfully. I think Dragon Age Origins did it too,
Yeah.
but they were both absolutely spectacular, and it was just amazing writing, period, because they were able to just give players the opportunity to do whatever you want. And I think that this is something that is just, it's not done enough in gaming, because and it's a lot of the argument. If you had, that option for almost every game out there, there wouldn't be ammunition for angry people to whinge online about stupid stuff. Like, it would just the problem would be like, what are you talking about? There's no problem here. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah. So, and I'm not saying that I don't think that there should be any other game, like that there should be no games that have like a set protagonist. There's of course room for that, and there's reasons why you'd want to do that for writing. But I just think for the majority of like adventure games, like big wide open exploratory adventure games, just make a character creator. It's just better and more options all around.
Yeah.
Why not do it?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. With most games where there are a lot of games where you should have that option because it just feels natural to it. But yeah, there's sometimes where it does depend on whether or not, like the story depends on whether or not the character is male or female. But I get your point. Yeah, so very excited for that. It comes out on September 26th. That's one great thing about um Nintendo. We have a lot of complaints about them, but one great thing that they'll do is they will drop games that you didn't really know that you wanted, and then you don't have to wait very long to get them. So we only have to wait 3 months for this game to come out for us to try it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on, Mario and Luigi Brothership looks cute. It's got that Superstar Saga type of artwork to it. I'm probably not going to play it as soon as it comes out, but I'm curious. But yeah, the stuff that really, really caught my attention is the fact that Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 are getting remakes, HD 2D remakes, and they look great. And it's wonderful news because recently Dragon Quest has sort of seen somewhat of a resurgence. Maybe not so much within Japan, but I've seen more people talking about it in the West over the last several years because of how much their recent titles have been kicking ass. So it's good to have an opportunity to go back and check that out. Now, only if they would do that with Chrono Trigger. Anyway, moving on. I saw Maximilian Dude lose his ever-loving mind on Twitter when he saw that the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection was coming out. I'm very happy for people that love that sort of stuff. I'm gonna take you for a ride. That okay, yeah. See, when that announcement came, I just heard that song from Marvel vs. Capcom 2 going through my head, and I had to deal with that for like 48 hours. Now you have to deal with it too. All right, speaking of Legend of Zelda: The Link to the Past, that's officially coming to the Nintendo Switch Online, although, PCs exist, emulators exist. There's also Perfect Dark and Turok. They're coming to backwards compatibility for Nintendo Switch. That's pretty cool. What else is there? Oh, this was really, really, really nice to see. So one of the gods of the video game medium is, of course, Hironobu Sakaguchi. And ever since he left, doing Final Fantasy, did Lost Odyssey, and a couple other things after that, he's sort of mostly stayed out of the spotlight unless it's something regarding Final Fantasy where he's, talks about it as the original creator or he's an executive producer. But he did do a little game for, I think it's Apple iOS. I might be wrong about that. Called Fantasian, and it got good reviews. And it looks like a really charming game. They do, you know how old school Final Fantasy games did the pre-rendered backgrounds. Well, for Fantasian, his team made real life dioramas and put them into the game and built the game around that as the pre-rendered backgrounds, and it looks so cool. But unfortunately, because of the way that games were made and the way game development works, it was sort of stuck on that platform for the longest time. But now people who have a Switch can try it out for themselves, and I'm probably going to do that because, all hail Hironobu Sakaguchi. Was there anything else I wanted to mention before moving on to Metroid Prime? I'm just scrolling down here. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
No, I haven't been able to review it as much as I wanted to,
Mhm.
but I like Metroid. Again, another game that kind of like set like I remember to this day when I was again very young, about the same age, I think like 7, 8, something like that. Getting on the bus and the talk of the bus first, headed to school. The talk was Samus is a girl,
Oh yeah.
and how it was blowing everybody's mind, and how they were talking, and a bunch of the boys were like, no way, no way, you see that armor, no way, no way. And it was hilarious to just like sit and listen. I didn't really join in the conversation because I was just like, this is a very fascinating idea, and I was very nonverbal when I was young.
Yeah.
But just the absolute shock, making up for it now, but the shock of just watching people react, get really excited, be confused and happy with like this revelation that was discovered, and how everybody was super excited about it. It's like, man, this was like small Western Canada, like 5 to 10 feet of snow outside, just normal Canadian light snowstorm. And just hearing the kids talk about this stuff and how excited they were for it, and how everybody was getting involved in it, whole big age range. Like, we don't have like schools back then were like,
Yeah.
basically it's like everybody's in one bus, especially when you grow up out in the boonies like I did. But it's just amazing to again see that kind of stuff. So I'm always excited. I always smile whenever I see a Metroid game. I wish the series the absolute best,
Yeah.
because it's one of those things that I want. And they had some flubs in the past, and I hate it when that happens, because it's like, no man, this is part of my childhood. Stop screwing this up. You're not allowed to screw this up.
Right. Especially
Stop
with,
it.
Metroid has had a variety of different iterations throughout the
Yeah.
years, but when it comes to the fervent love that people have for Metroid Prime, it's almost incomparable. uh, I unfortunately never. I did play the original Metroid Prime back in the day when Blockbuster was still around. I remember enjoying it,
Mm.
but it's just one of those games where both it and Metroid Prime 2 and 3, I just never got around to playing. It's just because I was probably just busy trying to I don't know, kick everybody's ass with Super Smash Brothers. By the way,
Mhm.
if you give me a GameCube controller and let me play as Link in Super Smash, everybody's going down. That's just how it be, okay? You feel me? But no, Metroid Prime 4, I know people were waiting for this for a long time. It was like, what, 5 years since its initial announcement? Then it got canceled. And, well, not, sorry, no, it didn't get canceled. It shifted development midway
Priority.
because it didn't meet their quality standards. In other words, it sort of took like a similar direction that Prey 2 took before it became Prey 2017.
Mhm.
And I thought Prey ended up pretty good, despite the fact that it really pissed fans of the original Prey off. But yeah, what we saw here with the trailer, it looks pretty damn good. It looks like standard Metroid, but modern graphics. And for apparently the game is running on the Switch hardware, according to what I was able to deduce online. People were thinking it was on the Switch too because of how good it looked. No, look, it's on the Switch, and if that's, I mean, seeing that that's the case, it looks pretty damned impressive for the
Mhm.
hardware. So yeah, I'm wondering. I'm probably gonna have to look more into whether Metroid Prime 4 is a good place to get into it, I'll probably just find a way to. I know my wife owns the original copies of the Metroid Prime game, so I can emulate them. So yeah, very happy for that. Really, really solid showcase from Nintendo. What'd you guys think of it? Let us know in the comment section below what your highlights were, or if you didn't really enjoy it as much as we did, or if you enjoyed it more. We want to hear from you. All right. Obviously, aside from the Nintendo Direct, the other big news of this week is that Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is out today, Syb. It came out 5 hours ago at the time that we're recording this. I'm playing it on the PC, and I'm enjoying it very much. I put like 2 or 3 hours into it so far. My opinion of it so far can sort of best be summarized by I was looking through the reviews for Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree prior to the podcast, and my opinions can pretty much be summarized by Game Informer. Their review, I think they gave it like a 95 out of 100, and they said, yeah, it's more Elden Ring, but it's more Elden Ring. Right? I mean, you have the pinnacle gaming experience of what the last 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years in Elden Ring, and you're going to complain if you get more of exactly that? No. Well, that's exactly what it is. It's more Elden Ring, and I'm all here for it, baby. I just beat I beat 3 bosses. I beat the one main boss that we've been seeing in all the trailers, where it's like the lion that's dancing around. Man, that was a tough boss fight, but yeah, it's awesome, and I'm looking forward to finding out what the hell Mikola has been up to. It's a mystery that's sort of been baffling people for the last couple of years, the character of Mikola. Mm-hmm. But yeah, aside from my personal opinion, it's I suppose the main thing that is sort of to be discussed here when it comes to the Elden Ring DLC is just how across the board people's reactions are to it. If you go over to Metacritic and look at the PlayStation 5 critic reviews, all of them are positive. 54 of the reviews that are there. And the lowest one is an 80 out of 100. And there's only one of those. Everything else, like Aiming Trend, there's 185. The New York Times, 88 out of 100. And those are there's only 3 reviews that are in the 80 to 89 range. Everything else is a 90 or above. And because of that, people have pointed out that of all the major DLCs that have been released for a whole bunch of major games, at the moment is the highest rated DLC for any game ever, surpassing the likes of Moon Crash or Prey, which is very beloved, the aforementioned Prey. Obviously, The Witcher 3 with Blood and Wine, and what's the other one? What's the other one called? You know this.
No, I don't. Actually.
Oh darn. Okay, Hearts of Stone or something like that. I can't remember. That's another game I need to go back and finish at some point. But yeah, people are loving it. Elden Ring, it's this huge cultural phenomenon. People are loving the gameplay. It's arguably one of the top 5, top 10 fantasy RPGs ever created. And yeah, it just continues to kick ass. And yeah, across the board, people saying, yeah, it's more Elden Ring, but it's more Elden Ring. So yeah. Are you going to play it? Have you played Elden Ring at all?
Not yet. I was waiting for the big, because I didn't have, when it came out, I was really busy with other stuff. Right. And right now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this because I'm really busy with other stuff. And I've got just tons of stuff going on. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, for crying out loud. But one of the things that I really enjoy in gaming, obviously, is mods. Mm-hmm. And so when the game originally came out, there was a bunch of things that I was like, I really don't like. There's a bunch of UI stuff and some of the character stuff where I was like, this is terrible. I can't, like, I need mods. And a bunch of mods have come out that fixes all my minor issues with it. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where it's like waiting for the time, for the opportunity to have time.
Yeah.
And
fair enough, dude. The game, yeah. The base game, you can spend up to around 100 hours per character, and then from what I understand, the DLC is upwards of 50 to 60 hours. Yeah, so that's 160 hours is Elden Ring. And I mean, if there's any game that's that long that is going to justify that time expenditure, it's Elden Ring. But I get it, like there's real life and all that, and I'm always having to pick and choose which games I play because of what games I have to cover for the channel. Sometimes, like, for example, I wanted to cover Xenoblade for the longest time. Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X, but those games are so freaking long. And yeah, I had to balance it out with shorter games and then maybe games that are only slightly longer. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but dude, if you do find some time to, like, I don't know, put an hour aside every once in a while to play Elden Ring, I would highly recommend it. It's absolutely sublime, and I cannot wait to go back and play the rest of that DLC because, man, I need that lore, man. I need that juicy lore. Yeah. Have you guys been
The
playing? Yep.
Kai Kai made and I believe this dropped today. Made like a 10-minute like movie quality trailer thing for Elden Ring. I only got 5 minutes into it before, or 4 minutes into it before before we had to do the podcast here.
Uh-huh.
But it's for a YouTuber making essentially sort of like it's really, I don't want to spoil it, but and I'm not a huge Kai fan, like I don't follow him or anything like that, but just watching everybody freak out over this video today has also been really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, it was like this popped up like, it might have been yesterday or last night, but just seeing everybody like, oh my god, did you see the Kai Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth Tree thing,
Mhm.
you know,
Oh wait, was
today?
that
And
the
I'm like,
guy that, like, everybody, like, he streamed the game for a long period of time and then he had like a statue of Millennia sent to him? Is that the
something like
guy?
that. Like
Okay, yeah.
it's he's a pretty big content creator online on all the different platforms, but I'm watching this thing and it's like watching, like, it really reminds me of like oh crap, what's the sci-fi movie where where it's a mercenary in a grim dark kind of future. It's very sci-fi and everybody's a robot. I know. It's like,
Terminator?
no. It's the other iconic one. The most recent version had Star Wars guy in it. God damn it, English.
Pacific
But
Rim?
it's no. It follows like a bounty hunter, and it's very gritty and
Oh, Blade Runner.
yeah, Blade Runner.
Okay.
It reminds me of Blade Runner, like just how he filmed it, the cinematography, the lighting, everything. It just feels like this ultimate Blade Runner thing.
Huh.
But they're talking about the Shadow of the Earth Tree and the lore within the game, but it's in this like sci-fi cyberpunkish like future thing.
Hmm.
And like the characters are like coming up and they're talking, and I'm like, this is when you've really, you're setting a new um cult following, or like classic following of something, is when your audience and big people in your audience are doing dedicated like filming. This apparently took like a few months to
Oh
put
yeah.
together.
Oh yeah. No,
So
the
it's
people who from software fans, they
mhm,
they are nuts.
they
And I
go
get it,
hard.
man. It's because their games are that freaking good. Like, ever
Hmm.
since the original Dark Souls. I mean, not to say that Demon Souls isn't a great game, but Demon
Hmm.
Souls, Dark Souls is like the okay. Dark Souls to Demon Souls is like the Dark Knight to the Lego Batman movie. Like, they're both great, but one is obviously better than the other. All right. Yeah, I got to check that out, dude. Thanks for putting that on my radar. But yeah, question is, guys, have you played the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC yet? We're going to be releasing this tomorrow. People who play on console haven't had the chance to play it yet, but by the time this is available, they probably have. Let us know what you think of it so far. All right. Moving on to this next piece of news. Side, remember that legendary NVIDIA leak that happened, like, I think 3 or 4 years ago, where, like, there were a whole bunch of games that were going to be a part of their GeForce streaming service that hadn't been announced yet. But then as the years went by, every game that was on that list slowly but surely got confirmed. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we had something similar to that, not on the same scale, but something similar happened with the Epic Games database this past week. The main thing about this leak that is significant to me. And there are other things that are worth noting that I'll point out in a second, but this is the one thing that just continues to make me foam at the mouth with anticipation. One of the things on that NVIDIA leak that has not been announced is a Final Fantasy IX remake. That reappeared in the Epic Games database leak. Not only that, there were 2 pieces of DLC that were associated with it. Apparently, one of them was like a Tetra card starter pack or master pack or something like that. And anybody who knows Final Fantasy IX knows that that's the card game that you can. It's an optional card game that you could play in that universe. And then there was another one that had to do with thieves or something like that. Obviously, that's Zidane. That's the main character. Oh my god, Saib, I want it so bad. Final Fantasy IX is my favorite Final Fantasy game. It is so good. And from what I hear, it's not going to be like this overly complicated, heavily quadruple A produced like Final Fantasy VII remake is. It's just going to be a straight remake, updated graphics, maybe voice acting, I would imagine. Is it safe to say that it's still coming? Because even though it's been 4 years, or 3 or 4 years, like, has there been problems behind the scenes? Do you think we're still going to get it? Like, what is the deal? I don't know. It's making me crazy.
I thought I had heard that it had been that it's still planned, like it's on the list, but their work with Seven's remake took resources
Precedence?
and time
Sure.
and precedence over on it, and they wanted to finish up that story and all of the plans that they have for that, which they've definitely expanded because of how how much of a success that's been
Yeah.
recently. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there was also supposed to be like an anime or an
Mhm,
animation. Like,
mhm.
we heard news about that like about a year or two ago, but then
I'm s-
nothing
I'm
came
s-
of it.
I'm still waiting for Honkai Impact's anime. It's
Is it rumored or is it like officially confirmed or
it was like soft confirmed,
okay,
but
okay.
just like yeah, it's like that. It's like it's like Final Fantasy stuff. It's like they just like just get it made.
Right.
Just make it.
Yeah, I want it so
Um,
bad. Yeah.
yeah,
But I imagine at this point that there's been enough smoke that there's fire. It's got to be happening at some point. I just hope that it doesn't it can't be canceled now. Like, they probably put too much effort into it to cancel it. Like, I know Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't sell as well as they were hoping, but I hope that when they start putting it on PC, that, and with how good the Final Fantasy games have been recently, that they'll sort of be able to build up that brand back to the fame and recognition that it used to have. I mean, it's still famous and well recognized and well loved, but not at the same level as it was when 7, 8, and 9 and 10 came out. Anyway, but yeah, there were other games that were a part of this list that were of note. One of them was so a lot of them used code names, and I suppose this is purposeful because of what happened with the NVIDIA leak. A lot of the names of the games were as they were in there, but to sort of prevent them from being leaked if this sort of thing happened, they've used code names. So I'm looking at this Reddit post, and people are trying to deduce based on the code names, and the source data what these games could be. And so one of them, well, I'll go down the list. So the first one I want to mention is a game called Selma from Rockstar Games. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that this is going to be Red Dead Redemption 1, a PC port, which is great. It's about frickin' time that they've done this. I'm so surprised that they haven't done it yet, with how many copies have been sold of Red Dead Redemption 2, and the fact that Red Dead Redemption 1 is generally considered by many people to be one of the top games ever made. Moving on, Sony Interactive Entertainment. There's Testament, which some people think is Helldivers 2, coming to Epic Game Store. Condo, people think that's Rise of the Ronin, coming to Epic Game Store. Yeah, people seem to think a game called Utah is The Last of Us Part 2, which, I mean, that's obviously coming to PC at some point, whether it's Epic Game Store or Steam. I mean, that's going to happen when the HBO season 2 comes out next year, right? What else is here? Bethesda, they have a game called Brant. They think that Doom Eternal, that this means Doom Eternal. Let's see what else is here. There were a couple other ones I wanted to mention. Hydra, that's from Warner Brothers. People think that's Wonder Woman. Oh, this was one that people were really pumped about, and apparently didn't even have a code name. Turok. Did you ever play Turok?
Hmm.
Yeah. Apparently, what do you think it is? Like, do you think it's going to be either a new game or do you think it's going to be a remaster or a remake? I tend to think it's the latter because it's sort of been too long since the original Turok. I don't know if people are too interested in it.
Yeah,
But
it's one of those ones where like definitely raises my eyebrow and go, huh.
mhm.
Like, I mean, it's got its community, and
Yeah, no, certainly, certainly, yeah.
it definitely has like a fairly big backing for it. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
wonder what I think it is. I think they're going to do like one of the older games, maybe like a very short remaster or remake of it, just to see where the interest is, see what the sales are like, and if they're like, oh, it did well, okay, then we'll make a brand new game. Because I think, from what I understand, the 2008 Turok wasn't well received or sold very well, and so maybe Saber Interactive or whoever owns the publishing rights or the producing rights for Turok are sort of wary about whether or not it'll do well, but hopefully it does.
Mhm.
Yeah, that'll be cool though. And was that pretty much it? Yeah, the code name for Final Fantasy IX was Momo, which
Lol.
I mean,
Lol. Lol. Lol.
yeah, yeah. There's another one called Skoboloff, which people what? All right. The Escobilov, which people thinks is Final Fantasy 16, and we already knew that one was coming to PC anyway, so no big deal. Remnant 3, dude. I don't know if you played Remnant 2, but Remnant 2 is pretty damned good, and I'm excited to play Remnant 3 when it comes out. I had a blast playing that with my wife, and I don't care whether we play it on Epic Game Store or on PS5. And
Mhm.
that was pretty much it, I think. Was there? Did you look at this? Did you notice anything else stand out to you?
No, like
Metal Slug
this
Attack.
is the thing that annoyed me the most about this was Epic's reaction to this, and also like just the general like Tim, do you not know how this stuff works? Like, I mean, Steam DB has been a thing forever, and people just learn how to not put massive spoilers and huge data leaks on a publicly accessible list. Like, yes,
Well,
it's not publicly
right, but
accessible.
it should be a lot more difficult to access than it
Yes,
is.
exactly. And you got to use like you got to use better code words. Like, and a lot of these code words are pretty solid. Like they are really good. But there were some of them where it was like, really,
Yeah.
like did you is I'm gonna take a wild guess. Your password is password,
You're-
right? Like that's the kind of level of thinking on this. And again, I know it's like this is not something that they expected, and that's part of the problem, is they weren't expecting this. It's like, obviously, this was kind of huge, and you should have known better.
yeah.
So that was my biggest thing is like how they reacted, and that they're like, "We're gonna sue people," and it's like, it's Steam does the same thing. Like, they have to go through the same thing. And yes, of course, there's some, variants and issues that need to be addressed, but still, it's just like, you shake your head and you just go, "Come on, guys! Like, really? Like, you didn't need to do this, but it's all right. It's fine. It's whatever. It's fine."
Yeah. It's thankfully, like I said, it's not as big as the Nvidia one was. A lot of the games were codenamed. It still shouldn't have happened, but yeah, hopefully they'll learn for next time, and hopefully, and learning for next time, they'll continue to improve the Epic Games database so they can learn to compete with Steam and maybe get Game Newell and his team off their ass and actually produce a third entry of one of their many beloved series. Or I don't know, maybe fix Team Fortress 2 while you're at it. Anyway, moving on to the next subject. Saib, I seem to recall us talking about this a while ago, and you seem to have I don't know, maybe I'm misrecalling you having sort of a deeper insight into this whole story than I. But I want to talk a little bit about Disco Elysium. So I played Disco Elysium for the first time about a year ago.
Mhm,
Holy crap, is that game amazing! It is
mhm.
unbelievably well written, and that's people will take some people will take that and say that that is a soft, uh, I don't know what's the word, soft sympathy for the creators of the game and their political stances. No, I condemn their political stances. I'm just saying that the
Mm.
way the game was created and the way that they were able to create a philosophical narrative and in turn make the people who are playing it philosophically minded in the way that they approach living in this world of Disco Elysium was almost unparalleled. I hadn't experienced anything that brilliant since Planescape Torment. So naturally, myself and a lot of other people who played it were wondering whether there was going to be a follow up. And for many years, we've heard that there would be, but we just weren't sure what form that was going to take. Well, a couple of years ago, we learned that the main figures behind the creation of the first game, like the lead scenario designer and another one of the lead writers, there's the dude and the chick, and another guy. I can't remember their exact names,
Mhm.
but they left, and apparently they left according to them involuntarily. They weren't happy with the way that the producers behind the next game, the people who were funding them, were sort of strangling them creatively or something like that. But I've also heard certain things
Yeah.
about the way that the people behind the original game were behaving, and it wasn't
Mhm.
particularly healthy. So I don't know what the truth of the matter is. I'm just talking about what I've heard. And then that sort of put Zaum, that's the name of the developers for Disco Elysium, Zaum, in a precarious place because, like, okay, we lost the people who are mostly identified with the original IP. What do we do now? Well, there was a report that I read from PC Gamer this past week that sort of outlined some of the things that have been happening behind the scenes. And Saya, it's not pretty.
Nope.
It's really really ugly. So I'm sort of summarizing based off of what I can remember from what I read. So please bear with me. From what I understand, they tried to create 3 different games over the past couple of years, and all of them have gotten canceled for
Mhm.
one reason or another. Uh, the most recent one, from what I understand, was the closest to getting completed, and apparently it was so close to completion that the people at Zaum were confident that it would release either in late 2024 or early 2025, but it got canceled. And I don't know what the deal is. Like some people, like again, it has something to do with people not being happy with the way that the producers are uh, hamstringing them creatively.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, there was one point I remember this part of the article where they were saying that the people funding the game were saying that you have to start production on the game on this particular game right now, otherwise we're not going to meet particular deadlines. And they said, well, we need time to be able to set up the scenario first. We need time to set up the branching dialogue trees. And, if you play Disco Elysium, you know how many of those there are. And, depending on what choices you make, there can be a lot of dialogue that needs to be written. And apparently, like, the response that the writers got was like, the producer was saying, well, stop being lazy, do your job. And I don't know if that was warranted or not. Again, I'm just talking about what I read. And then, yeah, they likened it to going into making a building without having building blueprints, right? Which isn't good. And then, yeah, at this point, the most recent iteration of whatever the hell they wanted to do was going to be like a spin-off involving a character from Disco Elysium, but that's got canceled. So who the hell knows? It's just one big mess. And apparently they just lost their most, like, the last writer that was on the original game. He just left. So is it safe to say that Disco Elysium as a world and as an IP is doomed? Side
Probably yes, I would say.
sucks.
And that's because what you had here was sort of a little bit of lightning in a bottle, which always comes with its own problems. Um, I'm reminded of this skit from Key and Peele where the guy's like, "We gotta create an app, man. We gotta like do something cool." And he's like and the other guy's like, "But that's like catching lightning in a bottle." It's like, "Yeah, dude, I already got one of those." And he pulls out a bottle that is a lightning
Lightning.
bolt. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, I caught this, a couple of weeks ago, but like, man, we need to make an app." And he's like, "No, no, no, we need to discuss what this is, going on here." But what this is it's a young studio full of young hyper idealists who came in with
Yes.
a huge amount of desire to succeed and very stars in their eyes ideologues of we can fix the broken world, that kind of stuff, right?
And then look what.
um and they managed to make the project work. And I have
Right.
I have been around, I have been a part of teams like this in the past where there's just so much excitement and so much energy, and people will work their absolute tail off. They will do their absolute best to make something. And that's what happened the first time. And it wasn't really lightning in a bottle. It was just a bunch of people who were very passionate, who worked their butts off
Yeah. And it
and
really paid
made
off.
something, yeah, and made something really truly unique. Now, the problem, and this is all unconfirmed, and that's sort of like what I'm not gonna I can't give any perfect answers. The problem that happened is what happens with a lot of these kinds of people, and that is that when their success hit the pavement and the wheels hit the road, so to speak, um, there was massive clashes on what to do and how to go about it and how to activate stuff. And there were multi-tiered fights, um, from as far as I've heard, from basically everybody. Everybody was, and it doesn't matter really which was the true story, because the story was accurate in that s- stuff just hit the fan incredibly badly and went everywhere. And were there victims? Yes, probably several. Were there perpetrators? Yes, probably. Just like any other scenario where you have a breakdown in office politics and people arguing, and just like just like college today, it's full of a bunch of people who were arguing while other people were trying to get stuff done, while other people were like, "This is the end of the world," and other people were like, "No, I need to make money to pay bills next week." And other people who were like, "I can take it all, I really can be king, if only I could seize the power that I needed." One after the other, stuff just goes downhill.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I gotta get some water. And it just it just it just
Spiraled out of control.
snowballed out of control.
Yeah.
Excuse me. um
Don't die
I
on me,
went
man.
really I went really hard on that one note. But yeah, that's what happened is people got there was a clash. This was a big team. It wasn't super huge. It wasn't like hundreds and hundreds of members, but it was big enough that
It's 30
a
people.
bunch of egos and people got in the way of each other. And I don't know what to tell you who was, what exactly happened. I don't think, even if we had like four people come out and try to explain everything that they could from like, and you try and get like four different perspectives, I think that even a large group of people who are good at investigations would probably be like, "This is just a mess. I like
Yeah.
this is a ball of yarn that has been knotted together in a thousand different ways, and I don't even know where to begin. I don't know which threads to pull on. I don't know what to do, because this is just it's just chaos." And that is what I think happened here, and probably happened because you didn't have a good leader.
Mhm.
And that's always what happens. Like a team that doesn't have a good leader who can say, "Hey, stop, stop fighting over this, that, and the other thing. We need, you have to sit down and do X, Y, Z." And and I think that that didn't happen, and that's what I hear the most. And it's usually accurate to say that whoever was in charge of either the purse strings or the the all the corporate stuff. And I've seen companies make bad decisions like this where you have an idealist who's just very excited to make a product. And you see this in at Arrowhead, right? Arrowhead had a perfect example of this. Helldivers. It's like the guy in charge didn't have the understanding about all of the secondary issues going on, and
Yeah.
didn't have the maneuverability to outmaneuver Sony in their autocratic insanity of saying, "Oh no, we're gonna screw people over," and there's just, sorry, that's just like, period. Like, this is non-negotiable. And to this day, they still have not allowed all of the countries where PSN is not available for people to be able to buy and play this game.
Yep.
And there's
Why?
there's
Who
a
the hell knows?
yeah, and yeah, exactly, right? It's like, why? Well, doesn't matter why. I don't have to tell you why. All I have to say is that those people aren't coming here. Period. End of story. And that kind of stuff is, I mean, it's, of course, it's hyper toxic. You have all the problems with it. You have all the difficulties with it. And yes, there is a considerable fear and worry about, like, well, what exactly does this mean? Like, where is this going to go? How does this function? All that kind of stuff. All those questions. And for them here at this studio, for as far as this IP goes, they just hit a wall, and they become a one hit wonder. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are going to not be in gaming again because they literally did a one hit wonder. And you have tons of bands who do this, where it's like,
Mhm.
doesn't matter how hard they try to get away from that, it's always just going to follow them, and it's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the kid who played Anakin Skywalker
No, well,
in, his life. He hates it with a passion. It's like Blur, that wrote that one, track, song
woo!
Wander.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
one.
okay, okay. Well, hold on a second. They were huge in
They
Britain.
were huge, but they
As far
never
as
had it.
outs, yes, in regards to North America, that's the only song anybody knows.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I get your point. It's true, man.
Mhm.
It's hard not to get pigeonholed in this industry.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, and oftentimes when it comes to big fallouts like this over creative projects, it's never just one person that's at fault. It's usually a whole bunch of different threads, like you said, that are strung
Mhm.
together that can't be pulled apart, and then it just devolves
And
into this quagmire mess.
yeah, and nobody's perfect. Nobody's Oftentimes, this is the way that almost life is in almost every perspective. It's not that there was one big bad villain. That does happen from time to time, but what happens most of the time is people do people things. There's miscommunications, there's arrogance, there's destructive behaviors, there's, my way or the highway, and that ultimately ends up hurting the team. And again, how exactly that played in here, how exactly that choked out the situation, I don't know. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to find out those
Yeah.
perfect answers, because of just how stringy and crazy and all over the place this has been. And yeah, it's just a big question of, like, well, I don't know. I hope it does right. I
Right.
hope I hope that something happens down the road. But really, looking at it from this perspective, there's a good chance that this is the end of it, sadly. And I hope that these people can find, a way back.
Yeah, creatively speaking, yeah. Hopefully they'll have like a Hideo Kojima Death Stranding situation going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the last story. Let's talk about something happy. Fallout. Any news? Like, what are we talking about in regards to Fallout? Fallout
So,
3? Okay.
so first of all, before I talk too much about Fallout, I want to point out, to all our fans and stuff like that, that game journalism reporting is dead. Period. Like it
And
is.
another news, water is wet.
Yeah, yeah. Another news, water is wet. So an article came out. This is very quick. It's not our main story, but just this Screen Rant article came out on how to manage stash space and inventory space in Fallout 76, and they got like all of the key details completely and 100% wrong.
Oh.
And it was clearly written either by somebody who did not understand the product, the game, anything about it at all. They even to right now, I pulled up, so they fixed the main bug. The main bug was the main error was that they were reporting on original release data. So original on release, stash space was at 400 pounds. You couldn't do any more than that.
Mm.
It's not 400 pounds. It hasn't
Right,
been
right, right.
400 pounds for like since they upped that rate in the first year. This is like years behind. It's now 1,200 as a baseline for everybody. That's pretty big. Like you really, like, that's a lot of stuff. But then they have they've got a whole bunch of things like ordnance. They're suggesting, hey, pick up this trait called Ordnance Express that reduces the weight of all shotguns. That is not what that ability does. That is not what that's not what that perk does. That perk reduces the weight of explosive ammo,
Right.
not shotguns. Who wrote this?
An
This is
AI.
absolutely, and that's what I think it was. Is I think this is an AI article. It's garbage. Screen Rant should be ashamed of themselves for attempting to put this out, and all of the comments just mock them brutally. It's like, yeah, your AI is broken. You don't know how to write an article about a game. Like it takes 5 minutes to it legitimately takes 5 minutes just looking at a site that's got all the perks and data and stuff to like theory craft a better answer than they had on that stupid website. So that's
Mm.
garbage. Anyways, big news this week is that headman himself, Todd Howard, showed up on the Mr. Matty Plays, who
Oh
we were
yeah.
once affiliated with via Sugar Bombed. Um, and he talked with him about Fallout and a bunch of other stuff. And it was a pretty darn good interview, I gotta say. There was a lot of Matty didn't quite put the pressure on the hammer, but that's not really his job. So,
Mm.
it was very interesting. There was a Todd came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're not remastering Fallout 3."
Oh wait.
Except he didn't really say that. He said, "Oh yeah, no, we're probably not working on that because we know that they kind of like there's been a couple of big leaks about that." So you got to remember, Todd will lie when he's supposed to be covering up for certain, when he's supposed to be like preventing certain pieces of big data and big stuff to come out. So I would tell people take that with a grain of salt, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't even be Bethesda themselves. No, it's certainly not his studio
Yeah, no
doing the
crap.
remake
You're
for that.
not working on a Fallout. You better not be working on a
Exactly.
Fallout 3 remaster. You better be working your freaking ass off on Elder Scrolls 6. Please continue.
Exactly. So there's that. There's the conversations they had about, more Fallouts, like what are they going to do? How are they going to increase the number of Fallout games? And again, he uses his tagline where Fallout 5 is going to not come out for a while because
No.
we want to have it come out sooner rather than later, but we're not going to be having that's not going to be we're not going to interrupt the next Elder Scrolls. We're not going to drop Starfield to just start immediately working on Fallout 5. But that's not the question that you're asking. The question you're asking is, are there other Fallout games coming out? Of course, mainline entries, Fallout 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're all going to be very iconic and very different. Fallout 76 is not part of that official structure.
Yeah.
Fallout New Vegas wasn't part of that official structure. Those are good games. I mean, 76 had a really terrible launch, but it's actually like legitimately, it's really good right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But overall, the story, the experience that we're getting in other games is not going to be coming from his studio, so he's not really the person to be asking about that. And he did kind of slip up when he was on his other interview a little while ago, where he said, we're working on a couple of things. We got this, when I call up these other studios, I say, what are we doing with that one Fallout project? And then I call up another one and say, what are we, how's it going on that other Fallout thing? It's like, he gave away a lot there. Here he was way more reserved in answering certain things, but he did answer something that was very, 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 very interesting. And that is that they really regret dropping support and content updates for Skyrim and Fallout 4.
Hmm.
Meaning that they wanted to, from their perspective, they felt that they could have added probably another 4 to 5 expansions.
Hmm.
Improving the game, improving stuff, making them better, making them, more interesting, and 100%, that is really good. That's good to hear, because I think that it's not hard to, and I know that there were people in the studio who were really upset, frankly, about them kind of dropping those games where they were and just kind of moving on to the next big thing without sticking around to help improve things, especially with the hyperactive modding community. So that was really good. The other thing, Starfield got review bombed because of the price of some
Yeah.
of the paid content, and he addressed that. And Todd said flat out that the cost is too high. They're going to look at it and they're going to make improvements, and they're gonna tweak things, and they're gonna try and make it so that it's not as ridiculous as it was. He wasn't really happy with it the way that it was, and that's not what they want to do. And I think,
Yeah.
and
Okay,
and
Howard.
we need to hold them, we need to hold their feet to the fire on this, because this is a really important issue. It's like 100%.
Yeah, I'm
Can
sure that
we
you really thought
please?
about it. You thought about it when you tried to do it for Skyrim. You thought about it when you tried to do it for Fallout 4. You thought about it when you tried to do it for Fallout
Exactly.
76. This isn't a new issue. Just don't do it.
Yeah. So looking forward to seeing where that goes, and the improvements that we can make with that as a community, and holding their feet to the fire on this. Um, I think paid mods are a good thing. I really genuinely do. But the issue has always been exactly how do you go about doing it? And then the other issue is, maybe not, don't try to favorite the over expensive mods and forget about the free stuff.
But what do you mean? Like, you mean pay people that spend their
Excuse me.
time to create the mods?
So the paid mods are, so we have this option come up for my mod, for sorry, our mod that we worked on with Thuggy,
Yeah.
for Fallout 4. It's one of the biggest mods. It is one of the largest story packs for the games, even still to this day. It is Project Valkyrie. Check it out. It's very, very good. Um, and it is hands down one of the best, I feel, one of the best mod experiences. We were asked if we wanted to bring that over and turn it into a paid mod. Thuggy was flat out said, no, I refuse. I did want to, personally, and from my perspective, I would probably jump at a chance to get a budget, and then to redo some of the dialogue, some of the story, add more depth, stuff like that. But right now I'm too busy doing other stuff, so it's not that it's not my highest priority.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of the thing, right? It's like this is, we want to encourage some modders to do that. There are some people who I really do think should be paid to do to work on content. Eleonora, I bring her up a lot. She makes amazing house mods, has been making house mods for Skyrim, for Fallout. She's a brilliant creator, um, and really great at her stuff. And they brought her on full time. She now works
Yeah.
at Bethesda, and that's one of the reasons why the ships in Starfield were actually so cool looking. On their interiors were they looked like actual lived spaces. Not like some of the stuff you go in. It's like this setup doesn't make any sense. It's like nobody understood how to decorate anything when they were making this. So yeah, it's it's I think that the program that they have is that some mods, they get adopted into the program. Bethesda brings them on board professionally. They clean up their mod so that there's no conflicts, that it doesn't conflict with other mods or other stuff like that. So there's a lot of testing, a lot of smoothing things over and making it work. Sometimes they have to move around some coding, objects in the game, locations, that kind of stuff, so it doesn't interfere with other mods. But then once they get it working and they can plug and play it with a whole, just you get on the Xbox store, you pick the mod, select that one along with like 20 others from the list. You go into the game and they're just there.
Mhm.
That's what the paid mod stuff does. There's more support, there's more stuff. And I think that's acceptable because there's a lot of mod creators who want to do this full time, or they want to do it semi full time. I know a lot of modders and game devs who are working on passion projects, and they're just working on passion projects because it's a passion of theirs and it's not their actual main job, and they actually have a full time job,
Yeah.
outside of stuff. And this Thuggy falls into this. He has a full time job. He makes mods with his son primarily, and then he joins forces with people like me and other people at times, when the project is a little bit bigger and he needs more hands in the kitchen, so to speak.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of really important that happens that way. But you can't ever. I don't ever want to see a marketplace where it's like only approved mods you can use and you have to buy them, and if you try to buy them all it's like $800. It's like, I don't want to see that kind of world. I want to see the world where some people do have that ability, and it's not that hard. There's a lot of mod creators who've made mods, and you look at Roblox and Minecraft for this. There's a lot of kids who have made enormous amounts of money off of successful mods, and that's really cool. But it has to be fostered in a healthy way, and you can never restrict mods to just being the ones that you approve, going the 2K route. It's like, absolutely not. Where they send people to your house if you dare to make a mod that improves their gameplay by a smidgen, or
Yeah.
improves the graphical usage, or fixes some errors, something like that. It's like they will send people to your house, they will shut down your internet, and they will allegedly do this stuff, including maybe and possibly firebombing your residence.
Just allegedly,
Just
allegedly. Yes.
allegedly.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them though.
But
Those
yeah,
guys
some
suck.
companies, are really aggressive and very, very angry about this kind of stuff, and that's not good. Obviously, that's a problem, and we want to fix that problem. And the way that you fix it is by doing what Bethesda does, where it's like, yeah, if you want to make a free mod, we're not going to get in your way. We're going to give you the tools, the same tools that everybody else gets, and they're just free. You can do whatever you want. And if you want to make a mod that's about sandwich making and My Little Ponies, go nuts. Like, some people are into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, um,
Preferably
and,
not, like some.
some people get in trouble because they add Thomas the Tank Engine, which is, I think, one of the greatest mods
Oh, of
in
course.
history. And he got sued not by Bethesda but by the people who own Thomas the Tank. And
Guess I did
I thought that was the dumbest thing ever.
Do
They
you
they
not
could have
know
made.
what these people have done for your brand?
Oh, you
Turning
you
the
have
dragons from Skyrim into Thomas the Tank Engine? Absolutely. Yeah.
like it's just there's 100 different ways that you could have quadrupled your income by just playing into that just a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Like, just a little bit, like coming up, like, man, if they signed a deal with Bethesda, when this originally came out, and said, hey, we want to make a parody. It's going to be a movie. It's going to be a parody movie about Thomas, and he's having a bad dream about being a dragon, and then like teaming up with the Dragonborn to like fight, the real end of the world. And we're gonna make, and it's just like we'll play into the meme really hard. I guarantee you that probably would have been one of the top selling movies. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
just the hilarity of it, and then like showing that they don't take themselves that seriously, because nothing breaks your immersion or your story or your belief or anything like that by just having a company that takes itself so seriously that you don't understand. You're a pleb. We allow you to have joy in this product.
Okay,
How
I
dare you think that
yes.
it's like, yeah.
Generally, I agree. It's a little bit tougher when it comes to trying to find a way to lean into stuff involving a mature rated game and combining that with a TV show that's meant for kids 8 and younger. But I get your point. There probably was some way that they could have leaned into it
Yeah,
to make some bank and it would have made everybody happy, but who knows.
yeah.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this episode of Maximum News. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit that like button if you like the episode. It helps us out a lot. Leave a comment if you have any thoughts on any of the things that Saib and I talked about. Saib, thanks as always for doing this with me, man. You have anything you want to say before we're done?
No, it's going to be an interesting next couple of months. We've got some we've got some stuff coming out. I went and I tried to film something yesterday, and I hope it turns out. We're going to try and get this stuff together. We're working on a bunch of stuff, but it's been life is like crazy right now, and there's no I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah,
So,
tell me about it, man. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
jump on Discord and give us a follow. Jump into some games that we're playing. I'm really excited to get into, and I'm gonna really try. I'm maybe gonna be lucky enough to get some good footage on this, but I can't wait to play Mech Warrior 5 Clans
Mhm.
this October. I am so excited about this. I've actually finally been able to get into the game. Some mods came out that fix my motion sickness with that game, and I am now actually playing through Mech Warriors 5, and it's amazing. It's so much
Nice.
fun. It came out years ago, and when it first came out, I bought it very quickly. I jumped into it, and my motion sickness, it was so bad, even in the third person
Yeah.
mode, that I just couldn't, and it was so bad. But now with a new computer and an updated graphics card and a bunch of other stuff and a bunch of the fixes from the community and the studio and all the add-ons and updates that they've done, it's actually really, really good. And I've been enjoying myself. And then 76 has been a lot of fun. We have a big community playing that right now. So yeah, jump in and yeah, hop in. We got some cool stuff going on.
Nice. And you guys can just find me on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to that in the description box below. Make sure to go check out my most recent video, which is on Full Metal Alchemist, the anime. I got some, I pointed out some juicy secrets that I don't even think the most hardcore fans of that anime will have ever noticed. Go check it out. All right. I'm going to go to bed, and then tomorrow morning it's Shadow of the Erd Tree 24/7, 7 days a week. You feel me? Until next week, though, when we do this again, I will put time aside in my schedule to record the podcast, as I always do, because it's very important. I want to remind you guys, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.